So I call myself a nutrition, behavior, and body image coach. And I'm like, do people know what that means? Right. So let me tell you what it means. It means that I help people finally feel more at ease around food and in their bodies. And I've kind of recently started using this language a little bit, this idea of loosen the grip that food has on your life. Um, so that doesn't feel like it takes up so much brain space. It's not constantly running through your head. You're not running this constant calculator of what you ate or what you didn't eat or how many calories. And you can learn to pay more attention to how food makes you feel, um, what it does for your body, not just like nutritionally, but what it does in terms of like what makes me full, what makes me not full, what gives me cravings, what doesn't give me cravings. Um, and really learn how to just let it be easier. And then along with that, in conjunction with that, right, is the body image piece, because so often how we are thinking and behaving around food is a direct result of how we feel about how we look. So they're like inextricably linked for almost everyone. Um, and truthfully, at any size and at any shape, women in bigger bodies, women in smaller bodies, women in bodies that are very underrepresented, and women in bodies who are very overrepresented. This is a universal experience. Um,
Yes.
and so that's who I work with. The work that we do is really centered around finding more sustainability, more peace, more brain space around how you're thinking about food, how you're using food, how you're thinking about how your body looks. For some people, that includes fat loss becomes a part of that. For others, it does not. Um, but what's cool about the way that I approach this is the skills and the way we approach everything around food is they're the same skills that will help you lose fat. It's not one or the other. You don't have to choose, which is a very, very different way of thinking about weight loss and eating and all of that. So that
Yeah.
was way more than a 15-second elevator. But
No, but it's I don't think that a lot of what you do, a lot of what I do can necessarily be distilled into a 15-second elevator pitch. I mean, I know I used that when we were just talking, but like there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of if this then that, and there is no one straight and narrow path, you know? Um and I think like that body image piece is the thing that we're going to sort of like hone in on today, because you and I were doing like well, you specifically, we're doing a live call in my group, in my coaching group, about all of those topics. We were just sort of having like a live Q&A, and the topic of body image came up. And I have struggled for a while for I think I don't want to say it's universal as a woman that you struggle with body image, but I think it's more prevalent than not, just based on my interactions with people. And I shared in that call that like the thing that I have disliked the most about my body for years, going all the way back to high school, were my legs, like specifically my thighs. And I one of the things that I came to at the end of running my 200-mile race a few years ago was like, it's really hard to hate your body when it has done this like amazing thing. And amazing thing is relative. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can only respect your body. Because I still, to this day, like I getting out of the shower the other day, I was like, oh, look at that. Give a little pinch to,
mhm,
the
yeah.
spots that I don't particularly love. And then I always just have to keep bringing myself back to that thought that I shared on the call, and that that I came to at the end of that race was like, it's really hard to hate these legs. Like, doesn't really matter what they look like. They just carried me 200 miles. So I think like that's kind of our jumping off point for the day, because I think it's a universal topic. Like you said, I think our discussion is like, and this podcast is, for runners, but it's something that's universal. And it's not just to say that like, I only love and appreciate my body when I'm running or when it's done something amazing to me. Like for me, like I can love and appreciate it outside the context of that as well. And that's my particular work. Like I have to spend some more time, like bathing suit season is coming up, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, we have to start revisiting this. Like, and even though I do appreciate it for all it's done for me, I'm still I don't know. Have you ever read the book, The Gap and the Gain?
No. Oh,
Oh,
no, but someone I just put that in my Amazon shopping cart.
you for sure, you of all people
Okay.
are gonna
That's
love
so
it.
funny. Okay.
And I have a particular client, Rana, who I hope listens to this. Like she, every single time I get on a call with her, she references that book. She's like, this book has like totally changed my mind frames. The basic concept is that every time we think about something, so let's use it. I don't know if my brain is capable of doing this today, but like, um, you're either in the gap, like look, let's just frame it as like looking at the positives, or
Mhm.
you're oh sorry, you're in the
Negatives.
gap looking at the negative, yes,
Mhm,
or you're in the gain looking
mhm,
at the positive. So
mhm,
any way you look at any scenario, you know, you're either in the gap and the gain. And the goal is to basically be more in the gain than in the
mhm.
gap.
Yeah.
But me as an individual, like some of us are predispositioned to be, you know, positive thinkers, like always think on the bright side. Some of us are predispositioned to be a little bit more in like, the what if, like maybe file it under the negative category. But that book was super helpful. So I would highly recommend it. But that is kind of like that space of like really trying to lean into the gain and try and be focused on that versus like, oh, my body is like lacking in so many ways, right? It's like, well,
Yes,
look at all the things that it is
does
capable
do.
of doing.
Yes, yes. I have so many thoughts.
Share them
When you were
all.
I'll forget them, that's what happens. Um, when you first started kinda talking through what you'd mentioned on that call and sharing it here, on the podcast, at first you said, "How can I hate my body when it's let me do this amazing thing?" And then as you kept talking, you kinda got more specific about the body part. And I actually think that there's so much value in that specificity. Um, I think sometimes like the body as a whole can feel like general and ambiguous and like kind of like amorphous, which is like a weird word to describe it. But getting more specific because we all have parts of our body that really really bother us. Like for me, it's my stomach. Has been since I was a teenager. Um, and I think really like leaning into that and kind of calling it out for what it is and looking for ways to like when we talk about the like as a whole the skill is called like right looking at body functionality, right? It's like the function of your body is to you're going to run this race and you're going to make it through and you're going to all of that. um and exercise is kind of an easy go-to way to think about that, but the reality is there's so much more than that. And it could be things like reading your favorite book, listening to your favorite song, dancing to your favorite music, watching a TV show with your kid, right? Like, and these things are kind of like mundane, everyday things. And it gets maybe a little meta or whatever, because you think if you didn't have a body, you couldn't watch a TV show with your kid, right? Sometimes that gets like a little, not meta, like existential, I think is the word I was actually looking to use. And also, there is some truth in that. And I think what's so important to remember about all of these skills or tools or whatever you want to call them is they're not going to like shut off the negative thoughts. They're not going, just like you said, you're like, I looked in the mirror this morning and I'm like pinching the skin on my legs, right? It's not going to make you not feel that way. It's not going to make you not think those things. What it does is it gives you a way to respond to all of that. And so you have a more positive, a more values driven way to think about it that kind of lives alongside of it.
Mhm.
It can help interrupt the spiral that often leads to like the really self-destructive language or excessive exercising or dieting or whatever the thing is that we do to try to fix the discomfort with how we look. And I think this is one of those times where it's like, I mean, this is always true, but like two things can be true. Like I can really not like the way that my stomach looks, and I'm like touching my stomach right now and I'm looking down and like, oh, there's my belly like hanging over the elastic of my pants. And I can also, you know, appreciate, and I had issues with my stomach well before I had a kid, but that's just an easy example, right? That like my stomach and my muscles stretched and expanded to have a baby. And there's many examples that don't involve having a baby because this isn't, sometimes I feel like that example is overused and here I am overusing it. But being able to recognize what that part of my body did for me doesn't again suddenly make me like it or love it or not have negative feelings. It just is it's an additional way to think about it. And again, I'm repeating myself, but it can help to interrupt the spiral that starts to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think that spiral that happens, my experience has been you have one thing, your stomach, my legs, whatever
Mhm.
it is, that you, I don't want to say necessarily hyperfixate on, but it's typically like the target of your angst is the
Mhm.
one thing. And maybe some people it's like the whole body, they just don't like, you know, how they look. They don't like how their body is distributed in terms of muscle mass and fat content and, you know, your proportions and all that stuff. Like I'm not saying that those things don't happen either, but typically it's like, oh, I don't like my, you know, my arms. I was working with a client at the gym today. Now, granted, this woman has just come back from like a super aggressive knee surgery, an accident that she had while she was skiing, and basically her whole lower leg. Like if you look at her whole lower leg, there's scars everywhere, and she had compartment syndrome, so the muscle tone in her leg is all gone. Like, and then she comes to me and she's like, "Okay, well that I'm working on that, but now let's like do this." And she goes to her arms, like my bat wings, so triceps, and so I just feel like there's typically one place that we target in and we get fixated on it and it just becomes the thing and it's like our mission to like make it better. And sometimes one of the things that I use to like interrupt that is the question, to what end? Like, okay, I don't love my legs, but like, to what end am I willing to go to improve this? And when I get there, what will be different about my life? And the
Mhm.
answer I always come back to is like, nothing. Like, I'm not a swimsuit model, like, like, so it does it really matter? No, and but there is, like, I obviously don't wanna there is a component to having an outcome and liking the way you look, so that is a worthwhile pursuit as well. Like, if you choose to strength train and do some make some changes to your eating and your life to obtain that, that's great, but also just know, like, when you get there, like that is not necessarily the end. Like there's stuff that's going to
Yep.
happen after that. So when you
Yep.
get there, I think you even touched on this in maybe like a podcast episode or a post that I saw. It's like, and then what? Like you have to maintain it or it's just going to go right back to maybe where you started from.
Yeah. Or something else comes up that you don't like, that doesn't look the way it should. And it just becomes this very slippery slope of like, well, when is it enough? When do I feel good enough? And my favorite example to kind of help, because I think we always think, well, that will be enough. It's not unlike like online shopping. Once I have that sweater and those pair of shoes, then I'll be happy. I won't need anything else. My wardrobe will be complete. I will look cute every day. That'll be it. And then the sweater and the shoes come and you're like, okay, these are cute. And then a week later, you're buying something else. It's never ending. And so we think that if I lose this weight, if I get this Botox, if I get this plastic surgery, I'll be good to go. I won't want anything else. I personally have not experienced that. I don't know if I talked about this on your podcast, but I had plastic surgery when I was 16. I had a rhinoplasty, which is the clinical name for a nose job. And that was just before all of my body image stuff started. So sample size of one, I can tell you that just because you have a different looking nose doesn't mean you're going to love everything about how you look. Because here I am, almost 45, and still working on all this. Um, and I know many women who get injections, all kinds of stuff. And then it's like adding, well, can you just put some here? Can you put some here? What about my jawline? What about my eyes? What about this? What about that? And so I was about to talk about something that can actually be helpful for this. When we look back at older pictures of ourselves, this is not 100% of the time, but this is true for most people. We look back and we see a photo where we look at it and we're like, oh, I remember in that picture, I hated how I looked. I remember I was actively dieting. I was trying to like hide my body. I can see how I was positioning myself. And we look at it now and we're like, I don't know. It's okay to curse, right?
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
don't know what the fuck I was talking about because I look great. And that to me is the single greatest piece of evidence that we have a disconnect from what we actually look like in the moment, and that all this is an opinion. It's based on emotions, and those emotions are totally real, but that there's some work to be done because what's to say in 10 years when you look at the picture of yourself now, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I look really good. And like, so then it's just like it's like the hamster wheel. Um, Again, doesn't make those feelings go away, doesn't necessarily make it easier, but it is a way to kind of ground yourself and maybe strip out a little bit of the emotion and kind of give yourself, for lack of a better term, a bit of a reality check as to what's going on and what we're trying to do to fix it to make it better when there isn't a way to fix it. Like this isn't about fixing a problem. This is about learning to respond and adapt honestly until the day we die. My point of view is that this is ongoing work. It's not like you don't check a box, you don't get an A, it doesn't get finished. But if we are not continually evaluating why we're doing things in terms of our appearance, and there's such a range of what that is, from non-invasive to majorly invasive and everything in between. Some of those things are about size and shape. Some of those things are not. Some of those things are just about appearance in terms of skin, hair, nails, coloring, clothing. There's so many ways we can impact our appearance, and we can even talk more about that. But just really continually being honest with yourself about, why am I doing this? To your point, to what end? What do I hope to get out of this? How am I going to feel when this is done? And do I really think that that's going to be the end?
Right. Yeah. When you were talking about the picture, I was sort of like smiling and laughing because I have a picture in my head, and it's so in high school I used to do gymnastics, and of course when you do gymnastics you have to wear a leotard, right? And I did not like my legs. I was, you know, I am aware enough to know that I was average in terms of height, body composition, size, shape. I mean, I was a teenage girl, right? So, like, there were some girls on the team that were taller than me. There were some girls on the team who were tiny little, like what you would think of
For a
as a
gymnast, yeah.
gymnast, like a tiny, small frame, not a lot of muscle mass gymnast. I was kind of in the middle. And so there's this picture of me on the balance beam, a photograph that was taken by a local news reporter. And I'm standing on the balance beam, my arms overhead, just whatever. And I have that newspaper clipping somewhere. And every so often I run into it and I look at it and I'm like, I look normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in my head,
Mm-hmm.
like like I don't want to say my nickname, but like, back in high school when everyone it was like a thing to call people thunder thighs,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
was me. And so like in my head, that is the name that I call myself, right? From back in that era, but then I look at that picture and I'm like, okay, it's like I look normal. Like I don't have these massive like, power lifter thighs, which again, nothing wrong with that, but like, in my head, I just think they're huge. So that's the picture when you say that, like that's the picture
Yes.
that flashes through my head. And of course, like, it's like it's printed in the newspaper, me standing on the balance beam in my, leotard. So like on full display for
Yeah.
everyone to see. And it's just
Yeah.
like, ah. So that's the picture that flashes in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. Another, like, kind of like a build on that, where, because some people might say, well, I don't have that picture, or like that's an overused example or whatever. But I think another really helpful, kind of similar, I use the word skills a lot, what, like tool, something that you can actually use, is like women will awfully, we'll look at a picture of ourselves or a group, and we'll say to ourselves, oh my God, I look disgusting. And a friend will look at that same picture and literally have no idea what you're talking about. And again, I think that's an equally powerful example, that it's an opinion. And how can two people look at the same picture and have such drastically differing opinions about it? Which one is quote right? Which one is quote wrong? I mean, there isn't a right or a wrong, but it's what you said about, it's what's happening in our head, and our lived experiences play. I mean, that is why we feel this way, plays such a huge role. But the way that we work with this, right, is not by fixing the problem on the surface. It's by really questioning and understanding, well, where's that coming from? And I don't mean like unpacking your childhood trauma. Some cases that's helpful, but in coaching, we're very forward thinking, not like looking back. Um, but really acknowledging that you have a bias. We all have an internal bias towards ourselves, which is usually pretty negative. Um, and is it possible that what you are seeing isn't actually reality?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite exercises, and this is really like a worksheet pen and paper exercise, is to like write down a statement that you like. The thunder thighs thing is perfect. I have thunder thighs, right? That's your opinion about yourself. That is not a fact. How can you turn that statement into a fact?
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, a lot of the emotion gets stripped out, right? Like, think about this, like, the sky is blue. That's a fact. The sky looks beautiful today is an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is a random but top of mind. So daylight savings just, I don't know when this is going to air, but daylight savings just happened on Monday. I hate this week. I hate having darkness in the morning again. I'm having a terrible time getting up, and everyone's like, "Yay, it's light out past 7." I'm like, I don't give a shit. It was light out till 6 o'clock. That was good enough for me a week
Yep.
ago. I don't need this, like, in the middle of the summer, it needs to be light out till 9 o'clock. No, and by the middle of the summer, it's light out at 5:30 anyway. Everyone's like, daylight savings rolls the clock back. Fact. It's so great that it's light out later is an opinion, right? And I know that seems silly, but sometimes we get very easily confused as to what a fact is and what an
Yep.
opinion is.
Yep.
And sitting down and writing out, I have thunder thighs. My thighs are a little bit bigger than my teammates.
Yep.
That's a fact.
Yep.
That's not good or bad. That's just a fact. That's like the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
I think that's super helpful. The other thing I want to say before I forget, because you know me and my memory, and I definitely want to circle back to what you were saying too, is perspective. And I don't necessarily mean, like, I do kind of the perspective that you're trying to talk about, like opinion versus, fact, but also the one of the things that like gets me, and because your thing is your belly, I think you will appreciate this when I get to it, is like I'm looking straight down. That's not the best perspective,
Yes,
right? Like when you're sitting and you're looking straight down and seeing your thighs that are like this wide, or your belly come over your, like, that's not the best perspective. So I try very hard, when I'm like sitting in the, one of the things I hate, we're
let's
gonna
do it.
talk all the things I hate. I hate sitting in shorts. I hate short.
Because the
You
thigh
will,
spread.
yep, because you will rarely see me in shorts unless they are like longer, kind of like Bermuda style shorts, or like my running shorts that just contain the thunder thighs, right? So, like, and I also hate sitting in shorts in my car. So, anytime I'm sitting, plane, train, automobile, whatever, I will have something in my lap because I hate it. Sitting outside, like, I hate it. And so, when I get into that headspace, if I am able to get up and walk around and like change literally my perspective, but also my perspective, I do it because I'm like, this is one tiny little
Hmm.
viewpoint. Like this is not reality. This is
Yes,
just the thing you're seeing.
yes.
Break, to your point, like break the cycle, like switch it up, do something else.
Yep.
like.
I love that. And there are two things it's making me think of. One, the perspective thing that connects back to me so much for like photos and why we have so many
Yes.
issues with photos. Because perspective, angles, lighting, lenses, there's so many variables. It's not unlike if you're looking down, you take a photo underneath, the whole shape of your
Oh,
face changes,
oh,
just like you're looking down at your thighs and the perspective. I mean, that's like when you're far away from something, it looks smaller, and when you get close, it looks bigger. Like this is physics, maybe. I don't even know what exactly it is, but so I think that's such a great insight, like personal experience, but that's something that a lot of people have. Like I will often look down at my stomach and I take so many photos of myself to share on social media.
yep. Which I love.
And there have been times where I have looked down at myself and been like, oh, my belly's like really there today. I'm going to take a picture and share it, talk about my belly. And then I'll take a picture like from the side and I'll look at the picture and I'll be like, that's not what I thought I looked like. And I'm like, well, like it unsettles me because I'm like, in some cases, it won't look as quote bad as I thought it looked. And I'm like, oh, well, what does that mean? Like, this is just like, it's just so interesting. Um, and then, oh my God, there was like something else that I really wanted to share based on what you said about the
Perspective, looking
perspective.
down, getting up and changing your
Man,
positioning.
I knew I was going to lose it.
It's okay. I know
It'll
it'll come
come
back
back.
to you.
It'll come
I
back.
know it will. But that's like, that's why I love what you share a lot on your social media, which is like, different pictures of your body in different positions. Like, hey, I have a stomach. This is normal. Maybe I should start my own documentation of my thighs.
It came back to me. It came back to me based on
Go,
what you just said.
go.
And this, I think, kind of ties back to the what our body does for you
Hmm.
and expanding on even more of what it is to live in a human body, right? When you sit and your thighs spread, that is by definition a normal behavior of the human body, right?
Yes.
It just it is. Just like when you sit and your belly rolls, it's normal. Our bodies, we're not machines built out of metal and screws and hinges. We are soft, a lot of, there's obviously hard tissue, but a lot of soft tissue structure. We move, those soft tissues move. So when you're standing, your thighs are going to look one way. And when you're sitting, they're going to look another way. Fact. Again, that's a great fact. I like my thighs when they're standing. I
Yes.
don't like them when they're, or they look good when I'm standing. They look gross. They look good when I'm standing. They look gross when I'm sitting.
Hmm.
Opinion.
Yes.
But again, another, I think, helpful thing around this, because I want people listening to take stuff away. Like, yes, the Me Too thing is so important, but also like, okay, well, what can I do about
Right.
this?
Right.
Is like, notice when you do that and remember what it is to live in a human body,
Hmm.
which is, I mean, I'm a huge science nerd, so I just like love thinking about that stuff. But even if you don't, it is totally normal for our bodies to change shape
Hmm.
as we move.
Hmm.
If they didn't, there would be a major, major problem.
Yes.
When we breathe, our bodies change shape. When we sit, when we stand, when we squeeze something, we're constantly changing shape. That's literally what allows us
Hmm.
like to exist.
Hmm.
And these are things that as you start to practice them do help. Again, they don't make the thoughts go away, they don't make the feelings go away, but they give you something to do with them, something that feels productive, that feels grounding, that kind of turns down the volume a little bit.
Hmm. One of the topics that comes up, I think, in running in general, yes, I'll stick with running in general, is that, and you probably see this as part of your nutrition, body image coaching, all the things, is that running leads to looking like a runner.
Yes,
Maybe you've seen that, maybe you don't. But like,
totally. I used to
like,
believe that. I
yeah,
tried to make that happen for a
right.
long time.
Right. And that those, while that might be true in some cases, that is not a universal truth. Just because you run does not make you look like a runner. Like that, and when I say a runner, I mean like very tall. So like I'm 5'5". Like this is as tall as I get. If anything,
Right.
I'm gonna get shorter, right? So
Yeah.
like that is not going to running is not going to turn me into a tall, thin gazelle. Like that's not a thing. But you might get some body recomposition as a result of running. And so I think that there is a certain subset of the population that comes to running because they think it's going to give them that benefit, and there is a letdown sometimes when it doesn't happen, and then either they stay because they like the what running has provided them in other senses, or they bail because they haven't gotten the desired result. But that's one of the things that I see, and that some discussions that happen is like, oh, if I become a runner, then I will look like this. And that is not true in all cases, and it can be disappointing for people.
Yeah. And that's also that if then thing is perpetuated so much by so many coaches and on the online space. Do this workout, eat
Yes.
this way, lift these weights, run these
Yes.
distances, look like me.
Yes.
And again, like providing more kind of factual, logical reasoning to help respond to some of these emotions. It's like, well, just look at you and I and how different our faces are different shape. We're different heights. Our hair is different colors because I color mine. So the gray is there. Right. We have different physical features. Our teeth are shaped differently and colored differently. So of course we are going to carry body fat in different places, build muscle in different places. That's again a normal part of being human,
Hmm.
but we forget and lose sight of all that in pursuit of this ideal image. And I think it's so important for whoever is listening to know like those feelings are normal.
Hmm.
And as someone who does this work for a living and also practices this, I still have those feelings. What's different is what I do to respond to them. And some days it works well and some days it doesn't work well.
Hmm.
Earlier this week, I the whole day was really, really preoccupied with food in my body. Like my brain was doing the thing where it was trying to count calories of what I ate, how many steps did I walk, was it fast enough, like the whole thing. It still happens. Like I literally every day used to be like that for me, and
Yeah.
I've come so far, but it never. The reality is, it never goes away, and that's okay. when I do that, I notice the thoughts, like the practicing of noticing what you're thinking and naming it,
Mhm.
calling yourself out on it, whatever you wanna do is so helpful because it gives voice to it. It turns it into something. It can help pull away some of the shame. Oh,
Yeah.
there's my brain doing that thing that it does where it's telling me that I ate too much or I'm not good enough or I look fat or I look disgusting. There's my brain doing that thing. And then, lots of different ways to respond to that. But again, I'm kind of gone totally off on a tangent here. But
That's pretty normal around here.
yeah,
I go off on tangents all the time.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
"Where did I even start with this?"
yeah, yeah. Like one of the most important things for me whenever I have conversations around body image is just letting people know that like you are not alone. The vast majority of women are experiencing this in some way. I think it's so important to point out that you and I both live in straight sized bodies and experience this. Um, and it's not just for people who are in bigger bodies, just for people who are in smaller bodies. It's women of, again, all bodies. Um, and that's not to say that women in bigger bodies don't experience it to a different degree or in different circumstances and all that, because they do. Absolutely. But we always look at someone else and think that like, oh,
Grass is greener.
if I
Yeah.
looked like that,
Yep.
cool, I'd be good. And I guarantee you, I would bet so much that that woman is looking at another woman
Mhm.
saying the same thing,
Yeah, just passing just,
passing it along.
passing it
We are
along.
just everyone is just literally chasing each other in this circle that
Yep.
has
No
no
end.
end and no beginning. Um,
Totally makes sense. We should
yeah.
definitely keep doing this.
Yeah, exactly. This is such a good use of my time, energy, and attention as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, one of the benefits perhaps of getting older, side note, someone asked me yesterday how old I was, and I made a face. Remember when you and I were on the podcast and I told you I was one age and then my husband informed me I was a complete other? That was fun. I did the same thing. A friend of mine at the gym like was asking. She's like, "How old are you?" And I went, I must have made some sort of like screwed up face. And she's like, "Whoa, what just happened there?" And I was like, "I honestly don't remember. I think I'm 46, maybe. I don't know." But one of the benefits of getting older is um again, perspective and understanding exactly what we just said is that like the grass is not greener, that if the end is not truly the end, like if you get to that place, like if I somehow magically, there's this woman at the gym who has the most amazing legs. I love her legs. I tell her often, she's one of my clients, like she comes to my class, I'm like, I love your legs, they're amazing. But like if I got there, then what? Like that's not the end. And so like just having the perspective to understand that this is a never ending like journey. You can't get too wrapped up in, like, my fix is always get there faster. Like, just let's just what do I have to do to get there faster? How do I make this thing happen? And then I can move on to the next thing. And it's like, actually, that's not how it works.
Yeah,
Because then
because
I'll be
we're always just trying to find relief from
yep,
whatever discomfort we're feeling. Like it's our nature
yes,
as humans to want to not feel discomfort or pain or
yes,
any of that. And we will do whatever we think we need to find relief from that.
yes.
A diet, weight loss, binging if we're having tough emotions, restricting food. Like it swings between all the extremes.
Hmm.
Um,
Putting yourself into a sport like ultra running to shift that hyperfixation to something else, like
yep,
thinking that's going to solve the thing. There are a lot of
yep,
people who are in this sport that are trying to like get relief from something else by just being uncomfortable over here.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yeah. Which is kind of leading me to think about. You said something earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, and then I don't know, just lost it. But this starts to a little bit bring up kind of the idea of values and why we do
Hmm.
things, right? And what are we doing that's externally driven and what are we doing that's internally driven, which I think is a sometimes a good, because sometimes I think people get like, what do you mean by values? When you feel external pressure and expectations or you're trying to look like something else
Should.
versus what actually feels good for you. How do you want to show up? How do you want to take care of yourself? In what ways, like what do you want to kind of like be known for? Um are kind of questions that get you closer to like what your values are. And when you are doing these things, when you are using food or exercise or changing your appearance for a certain goal, are you doing it for those more internally driven reasons? Or are you doing it for those externally driven reasons?
Hmm. We're
And it's
feeling
not
the compulsion to like, I should do this.
yes. Yep. And it doesn't have to be an either or. There can be overlap. Um, I think like I talk a lot about getting dressed. You and I will message about this. I talk a lot about getting dressed as a very, very helpful activity action around how you feel in your body because you can get dressed in clothes that you like that fit and are comfortable at any size and at any shape. Yes. Are there more clothes available to people in straight sizes? Absolutely. Yes. But big picture speaking, what you can put on your body, what you do with your hair, if you like to put on makeup, jewelry, accessories, there are a lot of ways that you can impact your appearance that have nothing to do with changing your size or shape. Um, Now it's like, well, I'm talking about appearance. Is that connected to my values? I care about how I look. Is that superficial? Is that externally driven? Am I trying to look like a certain person when I do this? Right? They're very interesting, nuanced conversations. I will always say that it is normal to care about our appearance. I will never ever say don't care about your appearance. Doesn't matter what you look like. That's just not true. It's normal to care about how we look. But there are many ways to take action on that. Um, and clothes are one that you can always turn to. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you and I message back and forth all the time, and like, you know, I typically like live in some form of gym clothes. And so like I am super jealous of you sometimes when you're presenting these outfits and you know you're all color coordinated and you've got all your and I'm like, ah, but then I think like that that is great and I can do that, but that's not necessarily me in the sense that, you know, my life is set up so that like I'm at the gym and then I'm here and then I'm like coaching clients and I'm like demonstrating stuff. So for me to be necessarily dressed in pants and a
Yep.
jacket, like a jean jacket, kind of like you are now,
Yep.
doesn't necessarily make sense. So
Yep.
there's a lot of that, like, oh, that looks great. Like that's what I should do. It's like, well, I should do the version of that for me. You know,
Yes.
I can take a lot,
Exactly.
I can take a
Yes.
page out of your book and sort of
Yep.
like follow suit, but it does not have to be, you know, me
Exactly.
that
Yes.
exactly.
Yes. It's like what of that works for you.
Yes.
I follow and you and I have talked about this as well. Like I follow a lot of stylists. And some of them are actually stylists and some of them are actually just influencers who post links of things of what to buy. And I see these women and most of them look phenomenal, these super cute outfits. And you see them and you're like, oh my God, that looks so good. And it immediately makes you want to buy it. And that is something I got sucked into for a very long time. But what I've learned is like, right, exactly to your point, like my lifestyle doesn't match up with some of these things. I don't need like all these blazers. I don't have a place to wear a blazer. I don't need six different pairs of like heeled boots. I bought a short skirt this winter because I'm like, I want to wear a skirt with tights and boots. And it literally just sat there because I didn't have a place to wear it. And yes, I believe in getting dressed. I work from home. I'm in my attic right now. Many days I only leave the house to drive my son around. I still get dressed because it's for me, and we can maybe even talk about that because that's, I think, a helpful thing. But I'm also not going to come sit up here in tights and a skirt and boots. Maybe some people would. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like thinking about, well, what can I choose to wear and feel good in a way that works for my life? And I think the example that you shared around like your life with going back and forth to and from the gym, demoing with people is so helpful, right? Because then there are things that you can pick and choose. Um, to do that. But it's so easy to get caught up in
Mhm.
seeing what someone else is doing and what they look like and think, if I do that,
Mhm.
if I buy that thing, if I look that way, it's the same thing with weight loss. It's all the same thing. If I
Mhm.
do that, then I will feel good and happy. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah. One of the conversations that I think is kind of interesting is like we've kind of like alluded to it, but like internal environment versus external environment. So um and how you can kind of be a product of your environment, you know, the people, the places, the things that are around you. And so one of the conversations that I have quite frequently, you know, either through DMs or with my clients is like going to a race, specifically an ultra race, and seeing, we've talked about this before, just like the variety in shapes and sizes,
Yeah,
and like both men and women, and the ages that are participating in these races versus something that maybe, like, and I'm going to very much generalize here, so this is, not to say that there aren't a wide variety of people at a road race, but road racing has traditionally been the kind of, like, environment that we talk, like tall gazelle, like people going super fast. And when you start out running and you end up in that environment, there are some people who find a home there who love it, and then there are other people who are like, this is, not really my game. These people are focused on one thing, they look one way, I don't think I fit in here, and sometimes they opt out, and then sometimes they actually end up finding like trails and ultras, which is a much like broader group, I would say, very inclusive of, again, height, age, size, sex, all the things. And so, if you're, all that to say, if you're not comfortable in your current like external environment, how can you let's find someplace new for you to go that is more suitable. I mean, again, it goes back to like the conversation with clothes, like what you do is applicable for you, what I do is applicable for me. And so, like, maybe it's not you, maybe it's the environment. So maybe you're looking at it, I don't want to necessarily say from the wrong perspective, but like, how about we change that perspective and see, like, is there another way to get you more comfortable by just taking you out of this environment and putting you into that one?
yes, yes. I think seeing yourself reflected in some way in the people around you is so important, and, like, that's where social media can be helpful if we choose for it to be, right? And, like, really curating who you follow. Like, it's so funny, I mentioned I follow a lot of stylists and whatnot, and most of them do not have my body type. Um, there's a woman that I follow who I'm actually currently working with. I love following her. I mean, we could not have more polar opposite body types. She's tall, she's very thin, she has a tiny waist, and just has like a kind of very stereotypically idealized, body. Um, I've been trying to actively seek out following more women stylists. It's not easy to find. There's a lot of influencers out there, certainly, but stylists who are styling women who were wearing a size 12, 14, 16, 18 plus clothing, it's not easy to find. All this to say that I'm very mindful of like who I'm following and how I'm intaking their content and the thoughts that will start to come up. Like,
Hmm.
I've gotten really good actually, like, I mean, there was a time in my life where I could never have followed some of these women without being in a constant spiral of despair about my body. So the fact that I'm able to follow them and look at their bodies and really just feel, I'm not going to say that I never think, oh, it'd be nice to look like that, but I catch it so quickly and it
Hmm.
comes up so infrequently now. It's like really amazing when I actually stop and think about it. Um, but anyway, just that the social media is such a very like potent way that it could go either way, where you're
Yep.
creating an environment that supports you or creating an environment that does the opposite.
100%. And like, again, I think people are in the early stages or days of, when Facebook and Instagram were kind of on their rise. It was hard to tell what was true and what wasn't true. And I think to some extent today, that is also a true statement. It is hard to tell what is real and what is fake, especially with AI and some of the stuff that's coming out now. Like, you can build, like, you can buy followers, you can do all the things, to you can buy your, meta credential, your check, and like, that means nothing. You pay for that, FYI, everyone, if you don't already know, like, you pay for that. That's not like, you're not granted that at some point. That is money, more money into them. So you can buy all of these things to have the outward appearance that you're doing well and you're making it, and like, you're an influencer, like, you can create that persona, but that might not necessarily be true. And so a lot of people, again, in the world of fashion or beauty or in running, I have really resisted, and I may shoot myself in the foot, and I may cut this part of the podcast out, because I have a real, I take issue with some of the run influencers that are out there, because of, I don't think they have and this is maybe a separate conversation. I don't necessarily think they have their followers' best interest in mind. And I think that's can be said of any influencer group. Like it's not just to this, but I don't like what I see from some of these people who purport to be, influential people or even, coaches, or and they've got a million sponsors. They're sponsored by like a million people, and every post they have is some sort of an ad, and it's I get it. Like that is a viable job today. I get it. It's not the job that I chose for myself. So there's a little bit of that. I don't know. I haven't really resolved my issue with it clearly because it like is one of these things. But I think that you really have to, like you're doing, be very discerning about who you follow and how you interact with their content. Because I unfollowed a shit ton of people over probably the last 6 months because every time I saw something of theirs, and a lot of it was I was following in the running world some mainstream people who were just rubbing me the wrong way for all of those reasons that I just mentioned, where I was like, what is the point of this post? Like, and when you ask yourself that question, if the point of the post is for them to get paid, that's fine. That's viable. But like, what are you getting out of it? And if it doesn't do anything for you and it makes you unreasonably angry like it made me, then just cut it out. You don't have to follow it. And the people that are not everybody is a professional ultra runner. Like that's just not true. I feel the compulsion to say that because so many people that I hear from sometimes are like, "Well, I'm not as good as you." Talking about me. I'm like, "Have you seen any of my stats? Like I might be able to like run far, but I am not in danger of winning any race. I'm not even in danger of winning my age group." So, like,
Yeah, I'm totally with you. It's a scary it can be like a scary world out there. It can go both ways. I have such a love-hate
me too.
relationship with social media.
Me too.
I don't think that will ever change. And I follow a very small amount of people. But even with what you follow, Instagram doesn't even give a shit. It feeds you stuff. So it's really hard to like totally shut it off. And not even talking about ads, like
Mm,
suggested posts and whatever. Or if I go into the search to look for something specific, something will always catch my eye and I will always click on it because I'm a human. And look, I'm not above what these apps are designed neurologically to make us
yeah.
do. And I see people, it's like probably the equivalent of what you're talking about, where it's like coaches who are posting all these before and after photos of themselves, of their clients. And like, I'm literally every before photo, literally every before photo. And I just want to scream from the rooftops, like, that is not the answer. These pictures don't tell a whole story. And this is not about fat loss being good or bad. I help people with fat loss. It is about the way you are approaching it, about why you're doing it, what you're getting out of it. Um, and I just, yeah, it's like, not but, it's an easy sell. Our
Hmm.
brains are wired to respond to that stuff, and people who
Hmm.
are trying to make money are going to lean into that. This is where the values conversation comes back into play,
Hmm.
right? Are you selling? Are you marketing yourself? Are you showing up as an influencer in a way that's aligned with your values? I would bet probably not, because you're in it to make money. And very often, when we are in things to make money and money's the priority, we are going to stray very far from what matters to us. Um, Now this gets into so much about just like humanity and all that stuff, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. But these things, but it's like they're these very big picture issues and concepts and whatever, but they are insidious in the way they are impacting us moment to moment and day to day at every turn.
Hmm.
Um,
And
yeah.
that's why it's so great, like, the work that you do, because if there is so much of your mental power that is devoted to calories in, calories out, number of steps, what do I look like, hyper fixating on, and again, fixating on this or that or whatever, it's like, imagine what else you could do with all that brain power if if you had a different approach, if you could take a different perspective on it, if it wasn't
Yep.
all consuming,
Yep. Yep.
if you
Because
had
our
different
our brain
strategies.
power is finite.
Yep.
It's a pie. It's a closed pie. It's not infinite. It doesn't keep expanding.
Mhm.
There's pieces, and you can make the pieces bigger or smaller.
Yep.
That's it. So if three-quarters of your pie is taken up thinking about food and calories and what you ate, what you didn't eat, what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you're going to eat, that's it. You've only got a quarter left over for the rest of the stuff. And that's why, it becomes such a problem, which is such like an understatement, but yeah.
Well, that's my argument for why coaching is so important, because you, the general person that is listening to this, right? Like, you only have so much time, attention, and energy to devote to all the things in your life. And if a lot of your time is taken up by the food and the body image aspect, and a lot of your time is taken up, again, shifting gears, will come to my side of the screen, like by like trying to figure out what you should be doing for your ultra training, that doesn't leave a whole hell of a lot for job or family or relationships or any of that stuff. And so, if you can have someone in your corner when it comes to this, that, or the other, that can help to rein you in and, like, help you to focus on, excuse me, focus on this. Let's not worry about that right now. Focus on this, make some progress here, and then we'll take the next step. Like, to parse it out or break it down to help you figure out what and what not. That is, I think, worth its weight in gold, because then you do not have to obsess or stay up late or constantly scour the internet or get sucked into an influencer vortex, try all the things only to end up right back where you initially started, except you're broke, tired, and distrustful of like everything else. And like, it's kind of a perpetual cycle, both in fitness coaching, in fat loss, in nutrition, in all the areas. Coaching is worthwhile. I think that the best thing you can do is be, discerning, like we've been talking about, and like find someone, again, going back to your values, values proposition, like someone who matches your values. Because if they're in it for, if there's, I think this is where my angst comes from. Like, if they're in it to be sponsored by every brand under the sun, and that's their main focus,
Mhm.
I think you will find it hard to get a meaningful interaction and coaching from someone who genuinely cares about the people that they interact with. I know I genuinely care about every single person that I work with, that's in my membership, that I DM. I know you do the same. It's why we don't take thousands of people into our coaching programs. We take this many people, and
Mhm.
we get to know them, and we are able to get really good results because we are focused on helping the person, not how many impressions did I get, how many likes did I get, how many this, that, and the other. Obviously we want people to see our content, because that helps not only them, but it
Yes.
helps bring people to us.
Mhm.
But it's not like my main driver isn't the money.
Yes. No, I am totally with you. And I think that, realistically from a business standpoint for me, I think that that does come from like a place of privilege as well. But also it's I think what you said was so spot on. Like the relationships that I have with the women that I work with are deep, right? Like yes, it's a working relationship, but there's also a personal element to it. This is
Mhm.
emotional work. It's very personal work. There's a lot of history and emotions and feelings tied up in this. And it ends up for most people, if we start talking about food, it very quickly starts crossing over into
Mhm.
so many other facets
Yep.
of life. And yeah, I think like as you're, for folks who are listening, like whatever you're looking for support with out there, whether it's running or food or body image or anything out there, like does that person, right, show up in a way that you would want to show up, right? Like, what's the vibe that you get from them? Are they, because whatever they're out there talking about, that's what they're going to sell to you,
Mhm.
right? And if, I don't know, I feel like I'm not going to like connect the dots here very well, but whether someone is selling you a quick
Mhm.
fix or not, or is doing it to make money. And this, well, I could go off on a whole separate, totally unrelated tangent, so I'm not going to do that. Um,
And just to be clear, like, I'm not, neither of us are opposed to making money. Like, we run businesses. This is how
yes.
we survive. So, like, there is no stigma here attached to running a business and making money. It's the value and intent behind that
Yes.
that irks me sometimes from
Yes.
people that I'm seeing. It's again, it's like a,
Totally.
the quick fix, the
Yep.
like, I even had this conversation with one of my clients at the gym, and something about like I was going to try and quote the exact conversation, but of course my memory is shit. So, but it was basically like, I live in a relatively small town. There aren't very many trainers and run coaches in this area. It would behoove me to do a good job, to not hurt my clients, to not badmouth my clients, to like care about them, to get
Mhm.
them results, because obviously word spreads like wildfire. And on the internet we don't necessarily have that. There's a longer,
Mhm.
well, I should say, in the past it took a long time on the internet for people to realize if you were, not true, but now I think that that timeline has shortened a little bit, but there is also this genuine ambiguity around who you are as a person. So that's why I think,
Mhm.
like, again, I always have that like discerning eye, because the
Yeah.
internet can be,
It's so easy to fake it.
yeah.
It's so easy. It's so easy to manipulate things and for things to not seem as they are
Hmm.
and to show. I mean, I always say, like, what people are showing is 1% of their life. And then you, as a consumer of that content, compare your entire life. Your 100% is being held up to their 1%. And not just any 1%, the 1% that they have carefully selected and created for you to see.
Yes.
And as a creator and a consumer, there's no way around that as a creator. You can't show everything. You don't want to show everything. I do my damn best to be as honest and show as much as I can.
Yep.
It's not everything. Like,
No.
what's today? Is this yesterday? Yesterday. I'll share it here. Why not? Yesterday. I don't know when this is going to air. It doesn't matter. I had, like, I don't know, maybe 10 desserts after my lunch. I just kept eating one thing after the next. And I'm like, well, I feel like shit now. I never got hungry again for the rest of the day. I felt disgusting. I'm like, why? I knew exactly why I did that. I felt gross. I didn't talk about it on social media, not deliberately, but I just didn't talk about it. But then this morning I showed my breakfast that I usually show,
Mhm.
and nobody knows that that happened.
Yep.
And not because I'm trying to hide it, because I'm here, I'm publicly sharing it. I'm happy to share, but there's no way for me to share like everything. And so you just have to keep that in mind that, but I think you get a vibe. I think you get a sense if you never see someone's downsides or negative shit or struggles, or not never, but even rarely, or it's silver lined all the time, that's not just, that's not your person.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know. We might have to circle back to this at some point.
I know. There's like a lot here. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
this will be a short episode. Meanwhile, an hour later.
Well, I think that's like pretty on brand for both of us. We're like,
Yeah.
we just want to talk about this one thing. We went all the way from like it's like hard to hate your body when it's
Yep.
done such an amazing job for you, and we've
Huh?
come all the way across the spectrum to like social media influencers,
Yes.
which I
Yes.
do think is like I mean, like our
Bowling.
the entire progression of our conversation like makes sense, and I think people obviously will be able to like pull the thread and like
Yes.
follow from one thing to the next. But like I think it's a perfect microcosm of the entire discussion. Like circling back to the beginning, it's like everything is linked, which is like a common phrase that I use because people are like, well, how do I fix my hip? Well, I don't know. Let's see. The hip might not be the problem. Like
Okay,
it
what's
might be
happening with your foot?
yeah, it might be something with your foot.
Yeah.
So like we can't just hyperfixate on that one thing. Everything is connected. What you do with that hip has a net shakeout, so to speak, everywhere else. Like it might be your shoulder that's fucking up your hip. Like
Mm-hmm.
as odd as that might feel, or
Mm-hmm.
like, why can't I get past the 3 mile mark? It's like, well, like it's not because you have the run training. Let's talk about the strength or the sleep or what. Like all of the things are connected, and you get from one to the next to the next. And when you're at the end, it just circles right back around, and you come back to where you started, but you're on a different track or on a different level. And that work just, it never ends. And for some people that's going to sound like a want statement, but for some other people it's like, oh, okay, I can kind of let go of the stranglehold that I have on
Mm-hmm.
trying to solve for this, or make this go away, and just understand that I don't have to necessarily solve this right now. It will get resolved over time, but then something else will happen. And then if I learn the skills and tools like you're talking about to handle that one thing, then I will be sort of leveled up for the next challenge, and it won't feel like it has such a stranglehold on me. I can sort of, unravel it a little bit, have a little bit more breathing room, and be able to devote maybe less brain power to it and maybe get a quicker result. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Everything. I'm just thinking of all the analogies, which I won't get into just for the sake of time at this point. But um, I think a word I use a lot and what you just so I feel like eloquently described is the body is an ecosystem in every way, shape, and form. And by ecosystem, I mean that one thing in one area of the body that might seem unrelated is impacting a totally different thing physically, emotionally, spiritually, physiologically, biochemically, all in all of the realms. Um, Nothing exists in a silo. And when you are treating something as if it is a solo entity in a silo, you are just putting a band aid on something and
yes,
it never works.
yes,
It never works. Um, and I think that's really important to internalize and start to notice like how that
yes.
pops up for you. No different than like I had a really shitty day at work. And so now I'm going to eat an entire bag of chips, right? If you try to just take away those chips and say, I'm not going to eat the chips, you're not addressing the reason why you're eating the chips. You're just putting a band-aid on that problem. It's going to be a short-term fix at best. Just like if your hip hurts and you only look at the hip and you never address the problem with the foot, well, that problem is going to come roaring back in another 4 to 6 weeks or whatever it is. Always pretty much without fail, this happens every time.
All right, that was a lot for people to digest.
Yeah. Thanks for listening for an hour and 4 minutes or whatever this ends up being when you edit it.
It'll be basically an hour and 4
Yeah.
minutes because, I can't there's too much good stuff in there. I'm gonna leave the part that I said I might cut
Leave
out and
it.
just
Leave
throw it
it.
all in there
That's the
and,
good stuff. Yeah. That's what people want to hear.
Where can people find you, on the interwebs, and where can people hunt you down and follow along with your content?
Yep, yep. For better or worse, I am on Instagram pretty much every day of my life. I try to take a break on weekends a little bit. It's at Jordana Edelstein. It'll be in the show notes. I have a website. I have a podcast called The Diet Diaries. I publish new episodes every Monday, talking more about all the stuff we talked about here. Um, and yeah, that's my deal.
Are you accepting new clients right now?
I am, yeah. So I work with people one to one on everything we talked about here: nutrition, relationship with food, body image, movement, fat loss, all of that tied together. I work with people virtually. And there's more information on my website. You can DM me, we can chat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank,
coming to hang out.
thank you. This was
Can't
awesome
wait to
as
do it
always.
again.
Me too.